Canada freezes PGP intake again. No new sponsors accepted in 2025. Welcome back to Canada Chronicles. Today's episode covers a major update that's affecting thousands of families across the country, and it's something many of you have been waiting to hear about. In 2025, Canada has once again frozen new applications for the Parents and Grandparents Program. If you weren't part of the 2020 pool, you're out, again. We're breaking down why this happened, what it means for families, and most importantly, what your options are if you're locked out of the process. But that's not all. Toward the end of this video, we're diving into a powerful shift that could change everything. There's growing talk about a complete overhaul of the PGP, including the possibility of new pathways and major policy reform. Could the PGP as we know it be on its way out? You'll want to stick around for that. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss these critical updates on Canadian immigration. Let's get started. It's now the fifth consecutive year that Canada has decided not to open the doors to new sponsors under the Parents and Grandparents Program. For thousands of Canadians, this feels like more than a policy pause. It feels like a message, one that says, wait longer. The Government of Canada, through Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, has confirmed that in 2025, it will continue using the same pool of potential sponsors submitted in 2020. No new interest-to-sponsor forms will be accepted. This decision lands heavily on families who have followed every rule, earned their status, and built stable lives in Canada. Many had hopes of reuniting with their aging parents or giving their children the chance to grow up knowing their grandparents. Now, those dreams are delayed again, and for some, permanently. This isn't just an administrative decision. This is about real people. It's about families separated by oceans and aging without each other. It's about children growing up without knowing their grandparents. It's about elderly parents dealing with declining health in isolation while their families are thousands of miles away. While Canada positions itself as a country that values family reunification, this ongoing freeze suggests a different reality. Still stuck in 2020. To understand what's happening now, we need to look back to 2020. That year, Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada opened an interest-to-sponsor form for the Parents and Grandparents Program. Over 100,000 submissions were received from citizens and permanent residents hoping to sponsor their parents or grandparents. Then the pandemic hit? With disruptions to processing and ballooning application backlogs, the department decided to draw from that same 2020 list again in 2021. Then in 2022. Again in 2023. And once more in 2024. Now in 2025, the story continues. The government has announced it will issue 24,200 invitations to apply during the week of May 6, all selected from the remaining entries in the 2020 pool. The goal is to approve up to 15,000 completed applications this year. If you weren't on that original list, you're not eligible. It doesn't matter if you meet the income requirement today, if you're a new citizen, or if your parents urgently need support. If you're not in that pool, you have no path through the PGP this year. This is not about who's ready or qualified. It's about who got in line back in 2020, and who didn't. Why Canada froze the program again. Understanding why this program remains frozen requires a look at the broader pressures Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada is facing. The department has been under serious strain. In early 2025, a large internal restructuring led to approximately 3,300 job cuts and more than 7,000 staff being reassigned or demoted. These changes affected application processing across multiple streams, including work permits, express entry, spousal sponsorships, and humanitarian programs. Adding a new intake of tens of thousands of sponsor forms for the Parents and Grandparents Program would only worsen existing backlogs. From a resource management perspective, continuing with the existing pool is simply easier. There's also the matter of public perception. In recent years, the national conversation around immigration has shifted. With rising concerns about housing shortages, access to healthcare, and infrastructure capacity, some Canadians have expressed unease about immigration levels, particularly when it comes to programs that don't directly tie into economic growth. While permanent residents and citizens argue that family reunification is a fundamental right, others question whether the system can support increased numbers of elderly immigrants, who are more likely to require public health care and less likely to enter the workforce. Faced with these competing pressures, the government is choosing to keep the process limited and predictable, at least for now. Who's left out, and what that really means? The hardest hit by this freeze are those who became eligible to sponsor their parents after 2020. These are permanent residents and citizens who arrived in Canada as skilled workers, refugees, or international graduates, built their lives, and now find the door to family reunification firmly closed. Some people missed the 2020 intake due to a lack of awareness, temporary ineligibility, or because they simply weren't eligible yet. Maybe they were waiting to meet income requirements. Maybe they became permanent residents just last year. Regardless of why they missed the window, the system does not allow them a second chance. For many, this results in years of emotional strain. Some are living with the guilt of being unable to care for aging parents. Others are juggling childrearing while trying to support family members overseas. The human cost of this freeze cannot be understated. It also creates an inconsistency. While programs for international students, agricultural workers, and caregivers continue to evolve, the parents and grandparents program seems frozen in time. And that's a contradiction families are finding harder to accept. Are there any real alternatives? Yes, but they come with limitations. The super visa is currently the most viable option for families looking to reunite temporarily. It allows parents and grandparents to stay in Canada for up to 5 years at a time, with a 10-year validity for multiple entries. This makes it more flexible than a standard visitor visa and, in some cases, more accessible than permanent residency. To qualify for the super visa, the sponsor in Canada must meet a specific minimum income threshold and provide a written commitment of financial support. The applicant must pass a medical exam and secure private medical insurance for at least 1 year to cover healthcare costs in Canada. In 2022, Canada introduced improvements to the super visa program, including longer allowable stays and expanded insurance options. But it still isn't permanent residency. Super visa holders don't get access to public healthcare coverage, and there is no path to citizenship through this program. It allows for presence, not permanence. Still, for families feeling stuck, the super visa is often the only lifeline available. And in 2025, it may be the only way to maintain meaningful, face-to-face relationships with loved ones. Will the PGP ever reopen? That's the question on everyone's mind. At the moment, there are no confirmed plans from Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada to reopen the interest-to-sponsor process in 2026 or beyond. But change might be on the horizon. There are growing calls from immigration advocates, community organizations, and even elected officials to reform the system. Ideas are being discussed behind the scenes, and momentum is building for a more transparent, scalable, and fair alternative. Among the proposals is the idea of a more structured intake system. Rather than relying on a random draw, this system would allow applicants to submit interest every year and be evaluated based on clear criteria like income, settlement region, caregiving needs, and readiness. Another idea gaining traction is regional quotas. Provinces could be given more power to nominate sponsors based on their demographic needs. For example, smaller provinces like Nova Scotia or Manitoba could fast-track sponsors willing to settle there, using family reunification as a tool to strengthen local communities and address labor shortages in support-heavy industries such as healthcare, long-term care, and home services. While none of these changes are confirmed, the discussions are real. And if enough pressure builds, the government may have no choice but to act. Thanks for staying with us this far. We appreciate your time and hope you're finding this information valuable. Let's now talk about the one conversation happening quietly, but could change everything. Is Canada preparing to replace the PGP entirely? Yes, that's a possibility. Behind closed doors, Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada is reportedly exploring a full redesign of the Parents and Grandparents program. Rather than patch the current model, they may be considering replacing it altogether. One of the leading proposals is a points-based system for family sponsorship. Similar to Express Entry, this model would assign points to sponsors based on factors such as financial stability, caregiving capacity, home space, and even region of residence. The system could reward those who are most ready to provide full support while moving away from luck-based draws. This would give applicants more transparency and control. Instead of relying on chance, sponsors would have the ability to improve their score over time, much like candidates do in economic immigration streams. Another reform being explored is a new pathway to permanent residency for super visa holders. This model would recognize time spent in Canada, the role of grandparents in caregiving, and long-term stability as part of the eligibility criteria. It would allow families to build permanence instead of cycling through temporary visits. Additionally, there are talks about handing more control to the provinces. By allowing regional pilot programs, provinces could tailor sponsorships to local needs and encourage settlement in smaller communities, relieving pressure from urban centers and addressing population gaps elsewhere. None of these changes are confirmed, but the signals are strong. Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada knows the current system is unsustainable. And with mounting pressure, a fundamental shift is likely coming. As we move deeper into 2025, expect announcements. Expect consultations. Expect options. So, here's where things stand. Canada's decision to freeze the PGP intake for 2025 keeps thousands of families waiting, many without answers, and even more without options. But while the door remains closed for now, it's clear that pressure is building for real change. Whether it's a new intake model, permanent pathways through the super visa, or a full overhaul of the system, something has to give. And when it does, you'll want to be ready. If this update gave you clarity or helped you understand your options better, do us a favor, hit that like button and share this video with others who might be affected. And don't forget to subscribe to Canada Chronicles and turn on the notification bell so you're the first to know when new policies drop, pathways open, or reforms are announced. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.